Well, this episode was a lot more heartbreaking than what I was anticipating, not only for Rhaenyra's side, but also for the Greens, because I definitely see Aegon as the villain in the sense that, he's a degenerate that does a lot of horrible things, including assaulting people, child fighting pits, and horribly bullying Aemon. Something, by the way, Alicent said was okay as long as he didn't do it in front of Rhaenyra's side, so Alicent enabled Aegon despite her chastising him quite a bit growing up. But seeing the breakdown of Aegon, how no one seems to respect him despite believing his father wanted him on the throne is heartbreaking in a way. His small council plots away without him. His Lord Commander plots away without him. His brother mocks him and shows him not only that he has better military intelligence than him, but also that he was plotting. Aegon then goes to his mother and she tells him that he'll never be as good of a king as his father, and maybe he'll be half the king his father was, and the best he can do is sit down and shut up. And this is a man that spent his entire life feeling like he was never loved by his father. Viserys didn't pay attention to him, and he also had, what I think we can all tell, was a very cold mother. Then he has this tiny bit of feeling like his father loved him, that the small folk loved him, and he wanted to do right by everyone. Then he saw how much he didn't understand ruling, had his heir and young child murdered, and then no one seems to respect his opinion or his position. It was so hard watching Aemon talk in High Valyrian and then Aegon not be able to put together a complete sentence that made sense. In a lot of ways, Aegon probably realizes that not only was Aemon his number one supporter before he humiliated him in the brothel despite all the years of bullying, but Aemon would be a better king. He learned his High Valyrian, he studied battle strategies, he practiced not for tourneys but for combat when he was with Cole, who is, besides Daemon, one of the best swords in Westeros. It makes sense that after all this, that Aegon lost it and decided to head out on Sunfire to show he wasn't useless and could help. Incredibly stupid, and of course he went drunk, but you can see what drove him to that stupidity. Kinda mad that they just now showed the bond between him and Sunfire. Those two were incredibly close, and yeah, they did a great job when Aegon was so happy to see him and he pressed his head to Aegon, but I wish we saw more of their bond. Now that we saw Sunfire in action, I think they did a good job on him. I was worried we wouldn't get the splendor of the most beautiful dragon to ever exist, but they did a pretty good job. Rhaenys probably thought she had gotten so lucky when Aegon appeared. Meleys was the largest, most fearsome, and quick dragon besides Vhagar at that time. She also had a lot more experience as a rider, which meant she knew she had the advantage and a very real ability to take Aegon out. But when Vhagar showed up, that all changed. Rhaenys knew how screwed she was with Vhagar. I'm absolutely shocked they changed lore and made it that not the three dragons fighting, Vhagar and Sunfire teaming up on melees, and then through that them all crashing to the ground, and that's why Aegon gets burned up and Rhaenys dies, but Aemon being the one that intentionally burned both Rhaenys and Aegon. I guess we should have seen it coming with Aemon snapping due to the constant abuse from Aegon, which, dang Aegon, why would you humiliate your closest ally whose dragon is guarding your city? I think he thought that Aemon would always be by his side, but Aemon has had enough. Now this is what I'm curious about. Cole saw what happened. He's smart enough to put two and two together that Aemon held back on Vhagar to see if Aegon would die to Rhaenys. Then he saw Vhagar breathe fire on Aegon intentionally. Then he saw Aemon look like he had a sword out to slay Aegon. Now Aemon could claim that he had a hard time controlling Vhagar and that he had his sword out just in case the enemy came near the king and he wanted to protect him. But I think Cole knows what really happened and that Aemon was hoping Aegon would get killed, and then when that didn't happen, decided he would do it himself. Then of course we have the moment before Aegon was crowned when Cole and Aemon were searching for him, and Aemon went, "Hey, wouldn't it be great if we didn't find him and I was king?" So what does Cole do? We know through behind the scenes and interviews that Cole is Aemon's surrogate father. Does Cole tell on Aemon, which gets him executed for treason, or does Cole keep shut, not only for the love he has for Aemon, but because Aegon not being able to sit the throne right now with all his injuries, they need a strong male heir. Yeah, they could get Darren on the throne, but Aemon taking over and having Vhagar shows that they are still strong. From the episode 5 previews, it looks like the Greens are going with the story that Aegon was the one to slay Melee, so I'm sure this is going to go over great with Aemon. Speaking of that, let's talk about Rhaenys. Pour one out for poor Meleys and the queen that never was. Now, if you don't know about Meleys, she was the dragon first of Viserys and Daemon's mother, Alyssa. She took both her sons and went for a ride on Meleys less than 2 weeks after their birth. So Viserys and Daemon have a connection to Meleys. And then when Alyssa died, Rhaenys claimed her. They were pretty much inseparable. She rode with King Jaehaerys on his royal progress and arrived to her own wedding on Meleys. She just loved riding so much. So for them to die together, I think is pretty fitting. Rhaenys is mid-50s when she dies, so relatively young for a royal to die, but she had a lot of good years before her. It is sad that it seemed like her and Corlys's relationship broke down before her death, especially when she found out it was Corlys's bastard son who saved him during the War of the Stepstones. I wonder if Corlys will have any guilt with how he last talked to her, because we didn't see a loving party between the two before she went to battle. Maybe he didn't think she'd die, but ending with her revealing she knows about Corlys's indiscretions and him being cold about it might weigh on him. Which on that, I was wondering if they would stick with the lore that Alan and Adam would try to claim they're the illegitimate son of Laenor, as it isn't made 100% clear in lore who the father is. They say it's Laenor, but as Laenor had certain tastes that made it impossible for him to have kids with Rhaenyra, Maesters go, yeah, probably Laenor wasn't the father, it was Corlys. But, you know, no one wanted to say that because Corlys's fiery wife might have gone crazy on them and Corlys as well. I'm interested to see how Corlys responds to Rhaenys death. In lore, he's mad that Rhaenyra didn't go, but the small council all agreed Rhaenyra going would be disastrous. So maybe the angle they go here is she waited so long to respond to the Greens that they had time to lay a trap. If she hadn't been running around, sneaking around, doing stuff, and been more proactive, Rhaenys might not have died. Rhaenys was definitely pissing me off with her don't use dragons stance because it reminded me way too much of Tyrion's stupid advice with Dany, but when someone had to finally bring a dragon to battle, she stepped up. I think the bond they showed between her and Meleys was also very well done. The personality they gave the dragon as well. I love the look back Meleys gave her. It appeared like the dragon not only was checking in on her, being like, okay, are you okay? Are you injured at all? There's a lot of fire. I'm a lot more durable than you. But also checking in like, is everything all right in general? But the fact that Meleys' eyes could be seen as it died and Rhaenys got to lock eyes with her was so beautiful. Rhaenys also accepting her death so gracefully. It changed from lore as it said the dragon fire burned her unrecognizable next to her felled dragon. Maybe the fire around her will burn her dead body and it'll be charred in the next episode, I'm not sure. Eve Best did a fantastic job showing emotion during the battle, which I imagine can be hard riding on a saddle that moves you around in front of a green screen, but her face when she knew that she could get away on melees after Vhagar downed Sunfire but she stayed to fight was so unbelievably good acting. She understood what she was doing was going to lead to her death. Even how she said attack melees was heartbreaking. She was saying it in a way of someone knowing that she is sending herself and her dragon to their end. And I know this is stupid because they're CGI dragons, but watching the dragons get hurt really, really kills me. It is so horrible to watch them get injured and killed because of their riders and their issues with each other. But I guess with that logic, we get upset about fantasy stories, fictional stories all the time, so being upset seeing CGI dragons being taken down is a very normal thing. Obviously, your empathy miles may vary. One final thing before moving on to Rhaenyra and Daemon, I am a little surprised they didn't show the previous battles. We see the end of Duskendale and then we're at Rook's Rest. It's kind of like when we saw the aftermath of the Battle of the Burning Mill. I get they're trying to stay within budget and they do have a shorter season so they have to move things along. And you know, seeing battle after battle might get daunting, but it's still a little bit disappointing. Okay, on Rhaenyra, I'm glad Jace ripped into her. Like, woman, what are you doing? How stupid can you be? Even Rhaenyra was shocked that Jace was scolding her. I'm sure the lords on her small council that lost their castles and fathers are super happy with her as well. It is about time Rhaenyra told Jace about the dream. Interesting that Rhaenyra doesn't necessarily believe what her father said. I thought for sure that she 100% understood. Also interesting that Alicent is trying hard to find lore on A Song of Ice and Fire. Alicent is probably losing her mind right now after she found out that she misinterpreted Viserys' dying words. So she wants to find anything on Ice and Fire to understand the miscommunication and what Viserys was talking about. It does seem a bit risky that Rhaenyra is only telling Jace when they're at war. Yeah, she doesn't expect her son to die, but at some point she has to know they could both be in grave danger. I wish she'd write it down and seal it in a chest and then destroy it if she wins the war instead of leaving it to two people that are actively in a situation that could end their lives. Daemon and Harrenhal, I'm loving the visions. The supernatural trips he's having are the best. So Harrenhal not only was made from chopped down werewoods as Alice let drop, but also a lot of people died making that castle. Harren enslaved the Rivermen and forced them into making his castle, and it's said their blood is mixed into the very foundation. Then when you take into account a lot of people have met violent, horrible ends there, yeah, you can see Harrenhal being haunted as shit. Crazy to me that they made a bed out of a felled werewood. Imagine taking someone's symbol or religious relic and destroying it and perverting it to make a bed out of. Do you want to get haunted? Because that's how you get haunted, idiots. Now is Daemon having the hallucinations because of the werewood or because Alice is drugging him? Maybe a little column A and a little bit of column B. Very telling that he chopped off the head of young Rhaenyra. He is hurting his wife's war and deliberately stalling. Happy to see him finally step up though. Sir Simon Strong, by the way, is the best. I love him so much. Crazy how this minor character has become so loved. And he was so sweet and encouraging with Lord Sesame Street. Okay, I'm gonna stop there because I can rave nonstop about this episode. The Kingsguard not being able to stand still, the soldier that was Ash collapsing when Cole touched him, Alicent being the biggest hypocrite and needing Moon Tea to get rid of her little Cole, all were great minor touches to this episode. This is probably one of my favorite episodes of House of the Dragon to date.